Hi there, Luke here with another video. For those of you unfamiliar with our channel, my husband Tyler and I make videos where we document our experiences since moving from North America to the UK. If you watched our last video, you'll know that we had just finished our time in Romania in the autumn of 2021, and we were proceeding to our next country, which was the least visited country in Europe, that is Moldova. So stay tuned and watch throughout this video to learn about some of the things that we did in Moldova and things that we enjoyed seeing and experiencing. If you like these videos, please be sure to give a comment, like, subscribe, and if so inclined, a tip with the super thanks button, as that is super helpful in supporting this channel. After our time in Romania, we proceeded to Bucharest to drop off our rental car and proceeded to the bus station. We took the bus from Bucharest, Gara Filaret, which left at around 1 p.m. and we arrived at Chișinău, Gara Centrală at around 10 p.m. So it is quite a long and not glamorous bus ride, but it did get us there, and it was an all-right experience. It cost about 700 Moldovan lei, and I believe they only accepted cash, and specifically, I think they may have only accepted Moldovan cash. I may be wrong on that, but you may want to look into it. I think we took a bus line called GAL. So do look into that. You can't really reserve it in advance. You kind of have to just buy it as you board. We stayed at a hostel called Hostel City Center in Chișinău, and it was nice because it was next to this little cat cafe where we had breakfast the next day, and we were able to eat breakfast and cuddle with cats, and Tyler and I love cats, so that was a really nice experience to have. For our first day of exploring, we headed to Cricova Winery. For those of you who don't know, Moldova is well known for its winemaking. Specifically, when it was part of the Soviet Union, it was the primary wine producer for the entire Soviet Union, which was a massive area of land to provide wine for. So it was the hub for winemaking, and that still exists to a degree to this day, with some of the most popular winemakers in Moldova still being pretty prominent. So one was Cricova, which we visited, and then another one is called Milestii Mici, which I believe has the largest wine cellar in the entire world. We unfortunately weren't able to make it to Milestii Mici, but we did go to Cricova, which was still a really awesome experience and well worthwhile. If you go to Moldova, you should visit at least one of the major wineries if you get the chance, because I do think it is something that Moldova is quite proud of in its tradition. For those of you who are interested in maybe some of the history of Cricova, they do go over this in the tour, and you do learn a bit, including that the tunnels that you go through when you visit the winery have been around since the 15th century, when limestone was dug out to help build the city of Chișinău. They were converted into an underground wine emporium in the 1950s when they were part of the Soviet Union. It was nice to kind of walk around, explore, learn some of the history of this winery, and of course buy wine, which we did, and we brought it back to our accommodation and had some nice wine to enjoy for our first evening in Moldova. The next day, we wanted to get more of a feel for the city of Chișinău itself, so we took a walking tour. We booked a walking tour called Free Tour Chișinău, where the tour took us all around the highlights of the city and lasted about 2 hours. Our group met at the Stephen the Great Monument, and we enjoyed some of the major sites, which included, but were not limited to, the Cathedral Park, as well as the Cathedral of Christ's Nativity, the Triumphal Arch, and the beautiful Valea Morilor Park. All in all, it was really interesting getting some local insights of the city, and even better, as we were at the lake, it had a beautiful sunset to enjoy the very gorgeous view. After our tour, we headed for dinner at a restaurant called La Plăcinte, which featured traditional Moldovan food. And I should mention that at this point in our trip, we really noticed a difference in the price of going to restaurants, which was a nice and welcome surprise because food was very affordable and very delicious. Very hearty though, so be sure that you come hungry. The following day, we continued some of our exploration of the city of Chișinău. First, we headed to the Cathedral of Christ's Nativity, which is a neoclassical Moldovan Orthodox church, which was built in the 1830s and has ornate interior frescoes. We also enjoyed walking around Cathedral Park, which featured lots of fountains, cafes, and just a general pretty area to walk around, especially on a decent day. Following a recommendation from our tour guide, we headed to what is called the Water Tower. And the Water Tower is now a local museum which features local and national history exhibits of Moldova, as well as providing the opportunity to climb to the very top for panoramic views of the city. Unfortunately, do be aware that all of the exhibition information is in the Moldovan language, so we weren't able to really understand it, but we were still able to enjoy walking around and experiencing the views from the top. Afterwards, we wanted to get a little bit more history, so we headed to the National History Museum of Moldova, and this showcases Moldovan history from ancient times to modern day. We enjoyed walking around the museum, taking in the lovely displays, and the beautiful architecture of the buildings and rooms themselves. Another spot to consider visiting in the city of Chișinău is what is called the Ciuflea Monastery, which was built in the year 1858 and has beautiful golden domes and blue painted exterior. Ciuflea Monastery is a Moldovan Orthodox monastery dedicated to Saint Theodore of Amasea. We finished our evening and decided to have a nice dinner and wine, and we started it off by having a wine tasting of what is called Divus Winery, and we enjoyed just kind of sitting, chatting, and enjoying our wine, and then we went to the next door steakhouse to enjoy some delicious food. For the remainder of our time in Moldova, we had 2 more days to kind of leisurely explore Moldova. So the next day, we headed to one of the remaining attractions, which was the Memorial Complex Eternity, which in Soviet times was known as the Victory Memorial. The monument was made on May 9th, 1975 in honor of the Soviet soldiers who died in the Great Patriotic War. The monument was restored on August 24th, 2006, marking the 62nd anniversary of the Second Jassy Chișinău Offensive. From here, we headed to the beautiful Chișinău train station, and we just enjoyed walking around, taking in some of the history of it. Specifically, it was built in the year 1870 in the Stalinist Empire style and is an example of the Soviet architecture of the former USSR. In August 1871, the first train arrived at the rail station in Chișinău. This is considered to be the birthday of the railways of Moldova. The building was called the Gates of Friendship because of its importance in connecting the Soviet Union at the time, and later on it was called the Gates of Chișinău. The railway station is an impressive architectural monument that is distinctive with its unique style. Our last stop was to the Transfiguration Church. The Transfiguration Church was built between 1898 and 1902, and it was later transformed into a planetarium during the Cold War at a time when religion was heavily discouraged in the Soviet Union. It was eventually damaged by fire in 1990. On our last full day in Moldova, we decided to rent a car just to do a lot of the little short trips that we wanted to do that were not accessible by public transport or walking within Chișinău. So we rented a car from a rental agency in Chișinău and we headed off to explore some of those areas. Do beware if you want to do something similar and rent a car in Moldova. There are two things to be aware of. One, the road conditions were not great, probably quite a bit worse than what we experienced in Romania. So do keep that in mind. Expect uneven roads with potholes and whatnot. And then the other thing just to be aware of is that you may or may not require an international driver's permit to rent a car here. So we fortunately had one, but just do beware that they may require that to rent a car here. The main things that we wanted to see outside of the city were some of the beautiful monasteries that are located in more rural areas of Moldova. We visited 3 monasteries in particular, and the first one that we headed to was Old Orhei. Old Orhei is considered Moldova's most important archaeological site and ecclesiastical complex and is located inside the Orhei National Park, overlooking the valley and Raut River. The complex is not too far away from the capital city of Chișinău, which makes it a great day trip. A visit takes you through time as it forms an open-air history book dating right from the Dacian early settlers around the 4th century BC through the Middle Ages and almost to modern day. The visit makes for a pretty walk, especially for some of the autumn colors that we were fortunate enough to experience at the time of year that we were visiting in autumn of 2021. Next, we headed to another monastery, which is called the Curchi Monastery. Curchi Monastery is a sprawling monastery allegedly founded in the 18th century with 2 churches and landscaped grounds. This was probably one of our favorite monasteries that we visited in all of Moldova and even possibly of the monasteries that we visited in all of Romania. It was really quite stunning and exquisite. The colors and opulent decorations inside were out of this world. Our last stop of the day was to Capriana Monastery. Capriana Monastery is one of the oldest monasteries in Moldova, mentioned for the first time in the 1420s. Alright everyone, that is it for this video on Moldova. I hope that you enjoyed it and I hope that it piqued your interest a little bit for this least visited country in all of Europe. You can certainly see that it doesn't have some of the tourist infrastructure compared to nearby Romania, but it is definitely worth a trip if you get the chance, even if not for the unique differences between Romania and Moldova with its Soviet history here. And even if you aren't interested in that stuff, there's some natural beauty here, and of course, who doesn't love wine? So we definitely enjoyed our time, if not just for the experience of getting to this unique and distinctive destination. Again, hope you liked this video. If you did, please be sure to give a comment, like, and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next video where we head into the region of Transnistria, sometimes referred to as the country that doesn't exist because of its unique status in the world that I want to share with you in that next video. And we used this as a gateway to enter Ukraine. And so this was in the autumn of 2021, before the current situation in Ukraine. So stay tuned for that series of videos because you may find it interesting seeing what Ukraine was like just a few mere months before all of the events that unfolded more recently. So stay tuned for that and can't wait to see you at the next video. Bye!